Top of the morning to you today. It's about 5:24 a.m. It is Wednesday, August 6th, 2025, and I'm here for you for another edition of Joe's Book Review. And today we're diving back into the realm of Dr. Donna Clovis, who's wrote here The South of Black Forgiveness. This is published by Balboa Press, a division of Hay House. This is a vanity press that people can go and pretty much purchase their books to be published and then sell them in conventions and speaking engagements around the world. So these are pretty easy to read installments that she writes out there. There's low page counts, primarily like one-page chapters, relatively big font. I can usually bang out one of these in about half hour. Okay. And I'd be extremely upset if that were the case, that I would shell out retail for this. A book like this right now goes for $14.99 as a cover price. But a couple of these pop-up libraries that you might see in your neighborhood have these in my neighborhood. Okay, that's where I've got a bunch of these. Got them for free, and every one of the ones I've picked up is signed, which kind of blows my mind. And in fact, this one right here says, Happy Juneteenth. Love librarians. Which seems kind of odd to me as a sentiment, and I really can't put my finger on it fully. Juneteenth is an important day for a lot of peoples. It commemorates the news of the slavery actually being made all its way down south into like rural Texas. You know, the awareness, the solemnness of slavery being abolished in America. It's an important thing. It's an important day. But something about Happy Juneteenth seems odd to me. It doesn't strike me as being respectfully appropriate. I mean, it may be. What do I know? I get a spine-tingling response akin to those people back in Texas years and years ago that did that mattress sale, trying to link it to 9/11. It was a tongue-in-cheek play between all mattresses, whether it be a king, queen, or twin, is the price of a twin, and 9/11 being the Twin Towers. They called it the Twin Tower sale. And let's just say it didn't strike very well with people that heard it. So, obviously saying Happy Juneteenth doesn't equal that sentiment, but, and I stress this, to me, it just doesn't sound right in my soul. But I digress. So my thoughts on reading this one here on day one. I had a feeling just glancing at the beginning of the work of this writing that I'm in for what you might call a black experience. That's the type of writing I'm expecting to see. I will iterate that this book is a work of fiction. And it says so right here on the book. On the back, it's shelved under the fiction section. However, it may reference real events. And I have to take it on faith that the events are true. I just will not be able to take on faith that an example exemplifies the proof of a system. Because you can find one instance in everything. But I can say this. In preparing for this, I had to look things up. Racism, by definition, says here, prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group. Typically, but not relegated to, a group that is marginalized or part of a minority. Now that the proverbial table is set, on with the show. Typically, when you read Dr. Donna Clovis, her work, these are thoughts written down as chapters. The chapters are usually of a one note, just one idea or one example thrown down in writing for you to bring up and read. They're akin to like a diary or almost journal entries, where one day's thoughts are completely separate from another day's thoughts from time to time. And here's an example of what this is. And keep in mind, this example is not representative of the words that are written in this book and others. It's just an example of the concept. For instance, chapter 1 can say, "The sun rose today, its light and heat struggling to escape beyond the vestige of dirty clouds in the early California morning. The white light trying desperately to dispel the blackness in the air." And then you go to chapter 2. "I lather the soap in my hands to assist me with my morning ablutions. I reflect on the white bubbles that are cascading across my beautiful ebony skin, and ponder how this is representative of the lives of all the slaves that were persecuted over the millennia." Chapter 3. "I sit on my front porch swing with a slice of cantaloupe sitting on a polished plate in my lap." Chapter 4. "Today, another CEO of an insurance company was found not guilty by the jury of his peers." Okay, now these lines can be absolutely indicative of the length of the chapters that you actually see in a book like this. Just one mere two-sentence thoughts that are scribed down onto the page. So that's kind of like a precursor. But let me put down some bullet points as to the thoughts that have spoken to me within these pages. And it will start like one chapter. 7 cops, 2 squad cars, and 2 supervising officers are necessary to, no, I'm sorry, not necessary, have arrived to cuff a black teen at the number 1 subway station for fare evasion of $2.75. And the message here is, a teen broke the law, and racism is the entrenched problem in police culture. In the next chapter, the silent killer in the darkness is one that gets in along with the community, and that silent killer is a sociopath, which can be true. And a sociopath, one who actually befriends them using whiteness. To what the message I took away was, sociopaths are white. Much of the following chapterettes follow a character named Tanisha, just out of J School at Columbia University, living in a brownstone on the border of Harlem, in a building that's reminiscent of Sesame Street, working as a reporter for the Columbia Herald. We follow her story kind of throughout. It's like a throughput of the novella. And the other thoughts that just enter the pages will not deal with her, but deal with society. The next chapter, President Trump cancels all federal news subscription for the Washington Post and the New York Times, couched in an effort to attack media outlets. The White House press secretary says this is an effort to save taxpayer dollars from the spread of fake news. So like I used in my fictitious example above, each chapter is simply autonomous from one another. So, sunrise to soap to cantaloupe to a CEO becomes Fair Dodger, sociopaths, Tanisha, Donald Trump. And I understand at the point, it's all the same thing. It's how it's couched. It's the kaleidoscope showing the myriad facets of the same issue. But none of that is prevalent in the words. It's a suggestion or a hint at the connections that are laid out here. However, they're not overtly being typed down as words in the book. The thoughts are not being written down. And this is inference. It's implying the thoughts and messages, not physically communicating those connections, but trying to coerce you into getting along the path that they want you to get along to. And there's a discussion out there by communications experts you may find which highlight the thought, is implying the same as lying? And it delves into honesty and deception. And here's an example. If I were to introduce you to a character in a movie, okay, I'm going to take an example from Harry Potter, okay? And this is going to be extremely high level. I'm not going into the books in any way. Just bear with me. It's just an example of a character, okay? There's one that comes up later in the series called Dolores Umbridge, okay? I'm not going to talk about who the character is or what happens, but if I were to introduce you to Dolores Umbridge on the screen and then cut to a shot of rotting fruit, or cut to a shot of a cadre of ants devouring another insect, I've just inferred to you that she is rotten or that she is violent. No, I never said it. I never showed you actions that she has taken yet or what her personality is. But by showing these things in conjunction with one another, I've totally just inferred that these are the qualities that this person inhabits. I can say, as an author, I didn't say that. As an author, as a filmmaker as well, but I can say I never said those words. I never I did imply it, but I didn't say it. But I got you to walk away with the impression just the same. And that could be done in both directions. I can either be, pardon me, I can either be, oh God, let's hope that helped. I can either be wanting you to not like the person because I want you on my side. And the person might not actually have any of these attributes, but your vision of them will forever be colored by that impression, and you will view everything through that lens. Which is why they say you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So, inferences, implications. It steers one's thoughts down a direction. But the person, be it in conversation or in writing as an author, may get you to think or feel some way, but has the plausible deniability of saying, oh, I never said that. It's a useful tactic that one's invoking to go down that route and get a message across without getting a message across. And it can be dangerous to be led down that path as the object, or as the reader, or someone using the tactic against yourself. That's what I believe these little snippet chapters do. It gives you the impression of things without showing the lines that cross between thought A and thought B. But it's putting you in, it's getting used to you being in a certain area, a certain realm, a certain society by implying that they're all connected when they may not be. But if you're just going down through the journey, you're going to follow it in that aspect. Moving on. The following that comes in the next chapters may have occurred. It's difficult to tell since I am reading a work of fiction, but I will discuss them as if they did, and I'll give you my thoughts. The first is a New York school. This is during Halloween, depicts brown children hanging from nooses. There's also pumpkins painted black with white eyes, which I'll have to say, when you design a pumpkin, that's generally true. The black shade usually denotes shadows. When I open my mouth wide, the inside is going to look dark. It's not anathema of a larger issue. And to make it so is championing a case that doesn't exist. It's what Miguel de Cervantes calls tilting at windmills from Don Quixote. A story where a delusional knight mistakes windmills for giants, and he charges at them in a futile effort to battle an enemy that only exists in his imagination. Now, nooses, that's probably too much. Although hanging skeletons, on the other hand, is a Halloween thing. Now, if the school with their arts and crafts and whatnot made the skeletons all brown, that's fucking ridiculous. Okay. But if they happen to be using like 5 or 6 different shades of color paper, if there's a red and a green and a yellow and a black and a brown and a white and an orange, then it's just one color amongst others. And I wouldn't be able to get on board and outrage. But if they were all black and brown, then probably, yeah, you can get behind it that there's someone doing this with an intention of the action. However, none of these details are discussed during the narrative of the novella. It's just nooses equal racism. Even though hanging and nooses have been around for centuries, in colonial America, it was popular to have hangings. The Salem witch trial had hangings. The Wild West is full of frontier justice hanging the culprit. Now, certainly, Southern charm had its hand in lynchings and hangings. So that seems to be the predominant narrative of that form of execution, is the one instance. At one time, eons ago, crucifixion was a popular method of capital punishment. And one guy got crucified one time, and it made it really famous. Does that mean every crucifixion has a strictly Catholic connotation to it? I can remember Jean-Claude Van Damme being crucified in Cyborg. Hell, there was one time that Wolverine was crucified by the Reavers in the Australian outback. But I don't think these are images of an anti-Catholic rhetoric. I'm sorry, an anti-Christian rhetoric. And that's not being relayed in today's terms. It's just a form of punishment. But again, with more data, I can either get on board the outrage or say, now you're tilting at windmills. One more time. Now you're just tilting at windmills. So it's one of those things where if you say it simply, in my mind, it's just not enough yet. I need a little bit more information before I can be with you or say, nah, I'm sorry, I don't think it is that. Next. Cops arresting black children trick-or-treating in an affluent area of Brooklyn. They are handcuffed, searched up against the wall, brought to the precinct crying, and eventually let go with no charges brought against them. 11:30 p.m., Columbia University. A black student rushes past a security guard. Security guard tries to get his attention, saying, "Sir." No response. Security guard tackles him to the ground. News headline: How students of color are treated at prominent universities. Facebook: How it avoids being a truthful news outlet. It serves as I don't edit these things. I just go straight through. Otherwise, you would have had that right there being I would start talking and then new cut. Facebook serves as a propaganda machine for politicians. Facebook, real news is propaganda. Although Facebook is not a news outlet, it's a social media platform that people can share their opinions and links to news articles. Now, I need to do a little aside for a moment because I had a really holy shit moment when I was reading this next part. In describing a candlelight vigil, there's rhetoric that Dr. Donna Clovis is spitting out here. And let me preface this for a moment. Let's take as a given that the reason for the candlelight vigil is 100% legit and heartfelt. Okay? And I'm going to make it plainly obvious. Let's say it's a white cop shoots a black teen who was carrying groceries home at 1 p.m. on a sunny day. And the white cop says defiantly, I'm shooting you because you are black and because I don't like you. Truly horrible and truly candlelight vigil worthy. Okay. I'm just going to set that up saying, boom, they're at a candlelight vigil. Not what's in the book, just what I'm putting as an example. But that being said, cue the rhetoric. A mourner is holding a candle. A gentle puff of wind picks up a cinder from the candle, and it falls down alone, downward. Melts, black and cold, upon the white concrete. And I'm like, oh my Lord. So now a concrete sidewalk is racist? Can you hear how that sounds? Now, this author likes to bastardize Lewis Carroll, especially Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. And this is an example of being so far down the rabbit hole that you're up your own asshole looking up like it's a quantum portal to you. As my wife would say, I can't. I can't even. White concrete. Okay. I'm going to recollect myself right now. So, what follows then are pages and pages, and for me, not much to miss. A story is actually being crafted within this. There's a serial bomber or a serial killer of black people using bombs. And he likes to leave a calling card. And the calling card actually, it always asks for forgiveness. But then again, the killer just keeps on doing it, so he's not really sorry. And there are journalistic investigations, which are merely expositions contrived as a eureka, we cracked the case moments. There's an anecdote about crows, and obviously how you have a gathering of crows is called a murder of crows. And there's mythology behind this in this writing that says that crows remember faces and they dive bomb danger, which leads to some serious journalistic investigation shortly thereafter. Now, that main journalist that was introduced at the beginning, Tanisha, she finds herself in an affluent Princeton tea room. Okay. And while she's there, she walks outside and she notices that in some recent concrete, there's some crow footprints that have been embedded in the drying concrete. And she shows her journalistic friend who investigates it, who actually says, and there's another eye roll moment, this crow has its own signature style. Do you think the crow's trying to tell us something? Do you think do you think we're dealing with some crooked cops here? And I'm like, what the fuck? So let me follow you here. You see crow footprints in 5-year-old cement. There are recent bombings and murders in a city not at Princeton, in a city, and your journalistic instincts from earlier conclude white supremacists. And now Old Crow footprints equals crooked cops? I mean, insert interrobang here. Extremely precise journalistic sound logic. I can totally follow these footprints 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And this continues. And let me spell out in this Da Vinci Code concept what is actually being connected for us, the dear readers. So 5 years ago, they replaced some sidewalk in Princeton campus because it was being lifted by tree roots. And they replaced 14 slabs of cement of the sidewalk. Therefore, there are 14 slabs of sidewalk that cross in front of the 25th precinct in, say, New York. And those 14 slabs of sidewalk, because there was 14 at Princeton, so that 14 must mean something, they go from the precinct and they pass an alley, and then in front of the Pentecostal church where the most recent bombing has occurred. And if you go to that location, you may find crows sitting on the wire that's near that alley. And a crow walked across the wet cement 5 years ago. Therefore, let's go check out who was on the police force over the last 5 years, because that's where we're going to find the corrupt cop. Jesus Christ. They say, if you look for X, if you look for something, you will find it, because it's all in the interpretations. And here, Dr. Donna Clovis is in New York. Or her character, the story is in New York. And in New York, garbage trucks that go around from the Department of Sanitation, they're primarily painted white. And there's a green stripe going along the side of it. And in the green stripe is the logo DSNY, Department of Sanitation, New York. And then she illustrates this stunning visualization how tall, white, mechanized soldiers take out the large, black plastic bags of garbage filled with debris. Damn that Whitey. Moving on. Here's another one for the investigative journalists. And I swear to God, this is what's written. The journalists are all sitting along like their war room. They spread out the photos and they re-look at them. And it's, tell me what you see. Well, I see the front of the 25th precinct. I see an alleyway. I see the front of the bombed out Pentecostal church. And all these are in front of like a newer sidewalk. And so, what do they have in common? The question is put to the group. Well, it all smells of white supremacy as the means for the bombing and the shooting. And again, it's like, okay, precinct, alley, church. I mean, that's a 100% recipe for white supremacy, all right. I don't know how I, as a reader, could have missed that obvious connection. Eventually, the story in this work of fiction does come to a conclusion. The white supremacist, blackface-wearing, racist bomber is found and caught. And he actually lives down that alley that the crows left evidence for humans to find by walking in cement in Princeton 5 years ago. And our intrepid journalist can just walk through the open door of this abode. And naturally, because the door to the bomb maker's apartment is just ajar, And the evidence is all scattered around the apartment, the bomb-making supplies, the red string that fanatics use to kind of like connect two things on a board on the wall, showing locations and people's faces, pictures of destroyed areas before and after. And then there's some drama about how they walked in, but they can't just walk out because they might be seen, and then they'll be arrested, and then be shot by the cops. And then it just kind of ends. Very closed case for the cops. One white supremacist, black-faced, cross-dresser, racist, murderer, bomber is locked up. And then what follows is 20 pages of appendices that just continue the narrative with helpful adages like, whiteness is the hidden accomplice that fosters the violence seen on screen. The end. Obviously, I've implied enough through my actions and my tones that I have a displeasure with reading something like this. It makes simple and false connections between things that have no relation to one another. I'll tell you what, Dr. Donna Clovis has a vast library of works that she's paid to be published out there, which people in my neighborhood apparently seem to be just putting into free take this libraries. And when I saw the one which had extreme imagery of Alice in Wonderland, which is a book I cherish very much, I certainly picked it up and was certainly extremely disappointed on how it was bastardized, which in turn I was able to find all these other ones, and again, they're shitter reading size. So I was like, all right, let me get the rest. Let me see if this is a throughput, and so far it does seem to be. So I'm just going to go through all the ones I have, and that's why you see me bringing this up from time to time. Actually, I was having this at the pool. I had the kids swimming, jumping in the pool, and I had finished this one. And I was like, shit, I need to start the next book. I was like, all right, I have her next one. Let me start that right now, take my notes along the way. So it's another one. I'll just deep dive into the next installment of these novellas and see what I can find out further. And perhaps by reading more and more of these installments, I will realize what a horrible race I belong to and probably see where I am part of the problem myself. So, on that note, peace. I'll be back here real soon. All right. You just stay tuned. Bye bye now.